You may not realize it, but you have your own score. Each and every one of us does, whether we know it or not. Your score is based upon your unique genetic makeup, and it can say a lot about you, including just how susceptible you may be to one of the greatest epidemics of the modern age.
It's estimated that about 40 million Americans above the age of 12 suffer from some form of addiction. 1 out of every 7 adults. This is a worldwide epidemic.
Scientists have really only just begun to understand addiction. And what they're discovering is that much of it is actually rooted in our genes. That's what the GARS test does.
GARS stands for Genetic Addiction Risk Score. It is the first genetic test to help evaluate a person's vulnerability to addictive or compulsive behaviors. The GARS test was developed by Dr. Kenneth Blum, who has dedicated his scientific career to studying the genetic foundations of addiction. In 1990, Dr. Blum made international headlines by discovering what has been called the reward gene.
We call the DRD2 the reward gene because it plays a major role in regulating brain chemistry that allows us to feel pleasure. What Dr. Blum discovered was that with certain DRD2 genotypes, limited production of this neurotransmitter dopamine actually makes it much harder for some people to experience pleasure. As a result, they may seek artificial means of increasing dopamine, such as through drugs or alcohol.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is naturally produced in the brain. When we experience something pleasurable, such as winning a game, for example, our brain rewards us chemically by producing more dopamine. Those with certain genotypes are not able to produce enough dopamine to sufficiently reward us with the experience of pleasure. This causes the person to seek more stimulation in order to produce the reward response. To describe this genetic condition, Dr. Blum coined the term reward deficiency syndrome, or RDS. There are many substances and behaviors that produce dopamine at the reward side of the brain. A person with RDS may be drawn to one or several of these behaviors, or none of them at all.
Those with reward deficiency syndrome are simply more susceptible to addictive, impulsive, and compulsive behaviors. It does not necessarily mean that they'll become addicted. For example, a person with RDS may drink an alcoholic beverage and experience some degree of euphoria. They may then want to consume more to repeat or perhaps increase the experience, or they may decide not to. RDS seeks to explain the likelihood of these behaviors that can lead to substance abuse and addiction.
That's why the GARS test is so important. It's not a diagnostic, so it can't tell you if you're addicted to something or if you will become addicted. But what it can tell you is how susceptible you are to the kinds of behavior that lead to addiction, so you can be more informed and vigilant in avoiding them.
To me, that's a game changer. GARS is a risk score, and that score indicates your risk of developing these behaviors. That number also identifies genetic variants that may indicate greater risk for certain behaviors. So 2 people could have the same GARS score but may be prone toward different behaviors because they have different variations. Understanding the genetic variation in RDS genes is the key to developing better addiction and behavioral management, as well as improving the quality of recovery.
Your GARS report from Genus does all of this. It reveals your total GARS score, identifies your genetic variants, and indicates which behaviors represent your greatest risk. It will also recommend the formulation of Restoragen that is ideally suited to your genetic variants. Restoragen is a patented, all-natural neuronutrient technology that rebalances brain chemistry to help reduce cravings, increase focus, and alleviate stress and anxiety. Genus has developed Restoragen in 6 different formulations to specifically target gene variants for precision, addiction, and behavior management.
The future is already here. With GARS testing and our tailored pro-dopamine regulator therapies, Genus is working toward a world in which addiction is history.
Know your score.